Hello and welcome to the third, kind of fourth episode of the Padrecast.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, where we still don't have a permanent place to record. My name is Taigen Irigoyen, and I'm joined today by Paul Mansfield.
Hi, everybody.
Paul, you're a senior here at Sarah.
I sure am, yes. 2020 vision.
What's some of the stuff you do here at Sarah?
I'm actually involved with a lot of stuff at Sarah. I take my academics very seriously, but besides that, I'm part of the Sarah Theater, I'm part of diving, and I love working on music.
You do diving?
I sure do.
When did you start diving?
Last year, my junior year.
How does diving... I didn't even know we had a diving team.
So Sebastian Anderson and I, we are the only two divers on the Sarah dive team.
Oh.
And we work alongside the swim team, get them some extra points at the meets.
So is diving is it like a separate event at the swim meets?
Yeah, so halfway through the meet, when there's normally a break, the divers will go up and they'll perform about 3 to 4 of their dives per diver. So it'll depend on how many divers there are, depending on how long the dive meet is. It's a lot of diving in one sentence.
Okay. And do other schools have dive teams?
They sure do. In fact, St. Francis, who, don't like them too much, but that's besides the point. They have about 6 divers on their dive team, so it's tough to compete with them, but, it works out in the end of the day.
Did you get into diving because of Sebastian?
I sure did. In fact, I was actually looking for PE credit to start off with, but I enjoyed it enough that I'm continuing with it this year.
Okay, I should have done that. I found out that I have to take PE this semester, and I found out that I could have just been like a manager for like a sports team.
Yes.
And it would have fulfilled the same requirement. But PE has been pretty fun, honestly. It's probably this is the first year that I think I've enjoyed a PE class.
Oh, well, sounds like you made the right choice either way. Well, if you're having a good time.
Making a choice is a very generous way of putting it. So you do the theater here too, right?
Yeah, I sure do. Just got done with Lord of the Flies.
Right. So you want to talk a bit about that?
Sure. So I started off at Sarah. Freshman year, I was on the crew team for a little bit. That's cruise and rowing. Didn't like that too much, so I was kind of looking to get back into my theater roots. I did that a little bit during middle school. So I decided to try out for my sophomore year show of Radium Girls. And so I went up there, gave what I got, the auditions, and I ended up getting in. Not a small part, but I really enjoyed it. The tri-school community is great, and I really like the director, Mr. Long. And then as far as the musicals, which are in the spring, I did West Side Story that year, and I did really enjoy that. But musicals aren't so much my thing. I like the drama side, so I've been continuing with the dramas. My junior year, I did Sense and Sensibility is Edward Ferrars, and then this year, Radium Girls is The Evil Roger, and I've been really enjoying it.
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar with Radium Girls. I actually saw a production of it while I lived in Chicago. And so I was already familiar with the play, and it's really dark. It's pretty sad. It's pretty glum.
It is dark, and a lot of people ask you, not gonna lie, they're like, why do you like?
Yeah, Paul, why did you kill all those women with radiation poisoning?
Exactly, right? And and why do you like dramas to start with? Always so dark. I think what I really enjoy about dramas is unlike musicals where it's like normally there's like a happy ending to stuff, is I like dramas because it really makes you step back and think, the world isn't perfect and there are some bad things going on, but it's important to bring some light to that. Like these women in Radium Girls, they didn't have a lot to say, but being able to retell that story kind of brings to light the stuff they were going through, and it wasn't good. It wasn't wasn't happy. The topics we were dealing with were dark, but in the end of the day, for the audience to see that, I think it's important. I have a really good time putting that on, making them see that.
That's kind of like what Lord of the Flies.
Yes,
because Lord of the Flies is not a very pleasant story. But
sure is. I had to push my best friend, Nolan Lamar, off a cliff, and mean it too. So
did he get hurt?
He did not get hurt. Thank goodness there was a mat down there. Okay,
okay.
I'm just joking. I knew there was a mat to start.
He did not know there was a mat. He had intent.
That's between us. But yeah, so I had to to get that part of my character to truly look in my friend's eyes and just show the audience this total distaste and like anger and rage. It was difficult, but I mean, at the same time, it's like just kind of showing that overall theme of like, when there's a lack of laws and society just goes awry, one individual that just kind of goes crazy can lead that mob mentality. And well, yeah, as you saw.
How do you get into character for anything that you do? Because you played Roger, who's basically the villain in Radium Girls. So
yeah.
Are you like typecast as like villains? First, that's the first question. Is do you think you get typecast, or do you like playing kind of like bad characters?
Yeah, I mean, not gonna lie. I mean, yeah, as you saw in Radium Girls, and then you saw in this one, yeah, I get cast some bad guys. I do like playing bad characters. As far as typecasting,
that's a joke, but
I actually I wanted to speak to that because it actually holds some merit. I am not like an evil guy. Obviously, I think of myself as a pretty nice guy.
You're one of the nicer people I know, actually.
I appreciate hearing that. I think typecasting can be said a little bit to just your ability as an actor. I think I've showed to Mr. Long in his drama class that if I want to, I'm pretty good at acting evil. And so in the aspect of my ability to kind of act evil, I think I was typecasted in that way. But that doesn't necessarily reflect my character as you see it every day, just my ability to act. Which isn't the true definition of typecasting, but there's an extent to where Mr. Long was like, I think Paul can pull this role off, and so I should cast him as such.
Okay. Do you think that how long have you been doing acting? Just since you've been at Sarah?
More seriously since I've been at Sarah, but I've been involved in some shows on and off pretty much since 6th grade.
Okay. So you just a little bit of like that like school drama?
It was actually outside of school.
Okay,
the reason I say a little bit, I did like 1 musical and like 2 other shows.
Okay.
Like I did 12 Angry Men, stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
But they're like junior versions, so they're not the full-on shows like you get here at Sarah.
Oh, okay. So I just asked because you brought up something interesting, at least in the roles that you get. So do you think it's like how often do you think how does an actor get into a character that is very unlike themselves?
I think the most important thing, they say for a lot of actors that are very easy to believe are ones that bring the most of themselves to the character. Meaning that, a character might have traits A, B, and C, but to fill in the rest of the character's traits, you have to take character traits of your own to just make it seem like an actual person on stage. Okay. But like you're saying, when you get somebody who is completely unlike the actor themselves, it's difficult to bring yourself to it. So I think the key is going on stage with a very firm understanding of your character's history. Before I went on stage as Roger, I didn't just waltz up there. I went through a pretty extensive character questionnaire talking about who are Roger's parents. I basically said that my mom's the only person that ever really gives me any attention, and my dad's abusive to my mom. And right off the bat, I can draw in some of that maybe anger that my own person would feel like if I saw a family member being hurt, and I can kind of draw off that anger and bring it onto stage. And also sorry, I might be rambling here.
No, go on.
Another thing is, so like, let's say I'm on stage as Roger and I'm really upset at the lack of leadership that Ralph is showing, another character. Yeah. I've never been in a situation where I've gotten angry at someone's lack of leadership. I'm not like a super strong leader. I don't jump up there and stuff like that. But I have been able to draw off other moments where, I've been mad at a friend and I felt anger in a different regard. So I actually, when I'm on stage, I'm not picturing Ralph. I'm picturing something that I've been angry at before, and that's what I show my emotion to. So I'm not angry at Max, who's playing Ralph. I'm not angry at Ralph. I'm angry at something that I made up, it's a previous emotion.
It's like an avatar.
Yeah, very much so. And that allows me to make my emotions look really, really realistic. Pardon my French, while also remaining, myself. Okay. If that makes sense.
That's really interesting. So you did the character questionnaire thing?
Yeah.
Is that something that everyone in the drama department, like when you get a role, is that something everyone does?
So Mr. Long, the director, he gives out the sheets as an option, but not everyone does it. I try and do it because, well, especially as I said for Roger, it was hard to use my own experiences at first to become such a hateful character. So I kind of needed that character questionnaire to be like, to really, dig in and ask me as Paul, okay, who do I want Roger to be?
That's really interesting. It's funny to me because that's something I do myself. For character, for any listeners who were not aware, I wrote a novel last year, and I'm in the middle of writing the second one right now. And when I write a character, I have like a similar approach where I try to think. I think the best way to look at your characters is to look at them as they're just people. And you get I have these character sheets that I have them on my laptop. I might be able to bring them up. But you mentioned, so I'm assuming that like his parents and his family history is not something that's brought up in the play.
No, it is not.
But it's something that you had in mind while you were playing him, right?
Yeah, I really quickly, just to jet in and then you continue. Oh, yeah. I think any line a character says on stage, there's history to every line. Yes. Roger doesn't go up and say, oh, there's going to be no ships that come. He's not saying that as some random remark. He's saying that probably because he hasn't had a lot of hope in his past, right? Yeah. So everything he says is from some historical event. So even though I'm not going up there saying, oh, this is my family history, I show that in how I'm presenting other lines. So.
I think, the most interesting characters, I think, are the ones where they were written where the writer had an idea of their psychology. And the way that I kind of think about it myself when I write is that people do simple things for complex reasons, and any like small actions that a person makes, there could be like a whole reasoning that touches upon all these other things, like just something as simple as like when me for instance, like I like to take walks, and if I see someone walking in my direction on the sidewalk, I usually try to cross the street.
You and me both.
And it's not because I want to be rude. It's just because for many reasons, I just kind of I take that time to be like by myself, and I don't like making eye contact. And there's like a lot of reasons to why I do that. And when I kind of examined that about myself, I thought like, well, that's a pretty simple, like, that's one action, but there could be tons of different reasons for that action based on who the person is. And so like, kind of like what you were saying with one character, they could say something, and depending on like, you can read into it in a lot of different ways, and that really comes from just like knowing people, right? Yeah. So that's really interesting that there was that
similar between the two. Yeah, no, I definitely.
Yeah, it's both writing, it's both characters.
Right.
Do you think that, because we're doing Othello right now in English class?
Yes.
And what I found really interesting was that I didn't care much for the character of Rodrigo. When I read it, I just kind of said, oh, he's kind of a minor character. He's kind of dopish. And then when we actually watched the performance of Othello, I was like, oh my God, Rodrigo's my favorite character. Yeah. Because the dude who plays him just has this, like, he has this quality.
Right, it's reading between the lines.
Yeah, it's almost like 60-70% of the character is actually just like how the actor portrays them.
Yes.
And so like do you think that, I mean, I've seen bad acting.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've seen bad acting.
Yeah, I've seen myself before.
Oh no,
I'm
just
actor.
Kidding. You did that improv bit.
I appreciate it. No, I'm just roasting myself. That's what.
No, it's humble. You got to throw in a couple humble things.
Oh yes, exactly. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, to offset.
Sorry, I forgot what your question was.
I don't even know what my question was. I do the same thing. I'm bad about rambling too.
No, you're good. You're good.
I want to touch upon your music production. because that is something that is more of a personal project, right?
Yeah. So, well, I've been doing music pretty much my entire life. I started off a little piano, then I moved into guitar. But eighth grade year, well, in my eighth grade year, yeah, I got a digital audio workstation, GarageBand on my computer, my brand new laptop, and I went on there and I just had a really fun time, making my music. I had a guitar and a bass line, and over time that just kind of became my thing. And I still do play guitar, but I've just moved along. Now I'm using Logic Pro, which is Apple's more advanced digital audio workstation, and I make songs all the time, and it's really cool that something that's not heard of too much. It's like a lot of people will play piano or something, but I don't really know anyone else who uses these digital audio workstations like I do, and it's given me some really cool opportunities to take part in Sarah's Try Music Honor Society.
Yeah.
And just kind of show people like a different perspective of music creation. Mm-hmm. And so like I make songs all the time, and while I really enjoy it, it's also like it's like an out for me, I guess. Like someone might say, oh, I go on a run when I'm feeling depressed or something. Well, for me, it's like if I am just kind of down in the dumps about anything, I just make my music, and that's kind of my thing.
Mm-hmm. What's your creative process like for songwriting? Because I've tried, and I mean like the composing part, I guess. Because I've tried composing music myself, and I've not been very successful at it. So how do you think about that? How do you go about that?
Yeah, it's well, I've definitely found my process after a while, but it wasn't easy. I think when I started off, like a lot of times people will be like, oh, I'm a bit of a Mozart myself. I'll be walking around and some random, key will come to my head or chord progression. And well, that doesn't really happen to me. Typically what I do when I'm bored is I go on and it can be like a keyboard or it can be like keyboard on my laptop, and I just, hit random notes. Mm-hmm. I just hit random notes. And, after a while, I'll come across this progression where I'm like, I really like that. And for me I probably spend like, when I finish a song, complete it with mixing and mastering, I'm probably spending upwards to about 20 hours on one song. So if I don't like the beginning chord progression, I better change it. So typically what I do is I make multiple, like I'll make 20 when I'm in a sitting. I'll stop and I'll come to it the next day and I'll listen to them again.
20 variations?
20 variations.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm not saying like they're completely different, but I might go to, F or an F sharp or just because I'm like, it's like the difference is very slight. And after about like 2 days, I'll narrow it down to like just a couple that I've actually still liked. Uh-huh. And from there, I just pick my favorite and then I start building up my music. So I typically start with like, the main instrument. It'll be like if I'm doing a guitar, if I'm going more electronic, it'll be like a synth. And then from there, it's all just kind of based off how it sounds. And so I'll just like add some, a bass line and mess with the, pitches. And, it's definitely an art to it because it's like once you have your actual song down, you have to consider that since it's electronic music, it has to sound good coming out of the speakers. So if I have a lot of, low end frequency, like 20 hertz and lower, the human ear can't even really make that out. So it's just going to busy up the speaker and it's not going to sound good. So, I got to, equal out my, pitches and then like add compression to make it sound better and, add cool effects like reverb and stuff like that. So by the end of it, it's like I'm probably spending 30% of the time making the music, making the beat, and 70% mastering it.
You said really low sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of lowercase music?
Can't say that I have.
Lowercase music is music that it's like an experimental genre where there's no instruments, there's no vocals. It's all like very small sounds. So like I listened to one like the lowercase music album, and like the first track is like the sound of ants walking.
Wow.
It's like this. It's like
you weren't joking when you said quiet.
No. It's really it's only possible to record it with like very like sensitive like high sensitive microphones. So there's like the sound of ants walking. Did you know that like plants make sound? they make
their leaves in the wind is all I can think about.
They really like their internal plant organs make sounds.
Very interesting.
And so there's like a 20-minute track of plant sounds. And so maybe consider throwing in a couple.
You know what? You never know. I don't have the best microphone equipment, but there's a chance.
It's crazy because I listen to it. I'm like, okay, well, I understand how this is kind of neat just from a conceptual point of view, because it's like, wow, that's like crazy technology, and like you can capture the sound of ants walking or plants and just really tiny stuff like that. But as someone who likes art and entertainment, I don't really like get that much out of it. But I go down to the comments, and it's like, this changed my life. It's like, there's people who maybe they're on some substances, but they're like, you read comments that are like, oh, this is the sound of life and da da da, and I guess like different stuff resonates with different people.
Yeah, I mean,
what kind of music do you listen to? What resonates for you?
Gosh, well, it depends on my mood. I listen to a lot of different types of music, and that's what I love about music so much is that like, it's like something that sounds terrible to you could sound great to another person, like ants walking.
I know that,
so to speak.
I've been in that position.
For me, there's music for different emotions, right? A lot of the music, there's really two genres I'll make. Sometimes I'll have some fun and I make like a fun rap beat and I just make some fun lyrics and I'm just having a good time. But when I'm making music that really kind of speaks to me, normally my lyrics that I write are pretty simple. I'm kind of just talking. I don't have an amazing voice or anything like that. It's really my message, and my background music. It's difficult to explain, but sometimes when you listen to a particular song, you don't even need lyrics for it to tell you something.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes when I write these beats, I just hear it and I'm like, it's almost like the story. I mean, the sound tells me a story, and when I write, I'm like, it's picking up here, and so this is where I want to talk about where my life was getting better at this point. And it's like, and I can't even really explain the process too well, but so it's like the type of music. It's like it's like an ambient. It's ambient. It's very like soulful synth pads and stuff like that. But there's also this sense of like warmth to it, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've listened to your music.
Yeah,
I have.
Well, there we go. Then you should know maybe a little bit, but so that's also sometimes the music that I'll just listen to. But it's tough if you're asking me for a single genre. It's like
I don't. You don't. I mean, genre classifications are sort of arbitrary when you get down to it. Like,
yes,
like how
it's
do you
true.
classify one certain thing? There's definitely artists I like that are like, they're classified as one thing, but it doesn't they don't sound like others in that genre.
Yeah,
and they're
very true.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna cut out this space because I'm spacing out.
You're good.
So, that's the question I had. Okay. What do you draw inspiration from when you make music? Outside of like your process of like experimenting and stuff like that, is there anything like that happens to you or you see or you hear or you experience and you're like, this makes me want to make music?
Yeah. I say for like the beat, it's just a lot of experimenting and seeing what it sounds like. But for lyrics, lyrics like lyrics are kind of funny because like I can sit down like right now and like write some lyrics that rhyme, and they might be fine. But for me to actually really resonate with lyrics, I have to like feel a certain way, if that makes sense. I can't write lyrics whenever I want to. And so things that'll kind of get me, make me feel that way is like definitely a lot of times I'll get in like these reflective moods, and it's often when I'm by myself, I feel myself, and it's when I think about something for a little bit, and it might be something like also like last year one of my good friends, her parents got divorced, and she saw me, and she was basically just saying like, gosh, I don't even like, I don't find like a point to my life right now. And, you know, it was like really scaring me. Thank God she's doing fine now. But I remember like it was like, I just wanted to like yell and just say, oh my God, you mean so much to me. And it's like, I can't even tell you that. Right.
Yeah.
And so I went home and I was like, that's what I'm writing about. I'm writing about how I wish I could just tell people who don't feel like their life has meaning how much they mean to somebody that they don't even know. And like, I mean, like, could I have come up with that right now? No. But when I get in these moods and then it's like writing lyrics is easy. It's like, they just come to me naturally. And that's when definitely some of my most inspirational work is taking place.
Yeah. It's like, I think there's a lot of art it could have only been made by like a specific person at a specific time. Like I felt that with my first book, where I wrote it at like a really last year, which was a really weird bad time for me. And I just wrote it really just to get something on the website. And then afterwards I was thinking about it, and our moderator, Mr. VK, who works in the library, he was talking to me about, he went to this writers conference with some like authors speaking, and they said, one of them said something like, I didn't understand what my book was about until after I wrote it. And that was, I was thinking about that, and I realized that a lot of the first Hangman book is about like suffering. and I think it's because I was experiencing a lot of emotions like that at that time, and it was very contemplative.
It's like, it was like subconsciously you were
it was
putting
like
your emotions on the page.
It was like, because I wrote it very off the cuff, and it was like, what am I thinking of? What ideas connect in my brain? And then kind of out of that, I just had this tendency to write a lot of most of the characters in that book are already, or at some point go through some kind of like very intense emotional suffering. And I was like, man, there's a lot of like kind of dark stuff in this book that I didn't realize.
The resemblance is uncanny.
Yeah. And then like, so I mean, it's really, it kind of almost like surprised me afterwards, where I was just like, oh, I guess that's what that was kind of about. And I don't know how, like, when I go back and edit it, how it's going to be. I don't know. Have you had something like that? Anything kind of similar?
I think one of the, oh gosh, I don't even remember what it was called. One of my first like pieces that I actually like put on SoundCloud because I was like happy enough with it. I thought very much that it was about me having a good time with my friends. Like, it was a very simple, sweet song. I re-listened to it like 2 weeks ago, and I'm expecting something kind of cheery. And I'm listening to the lyrics, and I'm listening to the way I say it, and I'm listening to the music, and I'm thinking, I think this song is not so much of me having a good time with my friends, but me wanting to have a good time with my friends. And I wasn't. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, at that point in my life, I was hanging out with some people that I wanted to be friends with, and I wasn't necessarily friends with them, if that makes sense. And so while I was thinking, to myself, this is a song about me hanging out with my friends, it was really, the way I was saying it was like, this is a song of me hanging out with people that I want to be friends with, or I think I need to be friends with to be happy. Over my high school career, I've kind of come over that and been trying to hang out with some people that are more me and people that really make me happy. But it's almost like my music figured that out about me before I did.
Really?
Yeah. And it just in the way crazy. I heard it. And I'm not trying to sound all like, yo, it's the music, man.
No, that's really interesting.
But
that's fascinating.
That was really cool to me. And I can't say that happens with all my music.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely that one piece. Yeah.
Okay, cool. We are nearing on 30 minutes. So
boy.
Before we end, is there anything you wanted to plug? Your SoundCloud, perhaps?
Sure. If you feel so inclined, my SoundCloud is Fernweh, Fernweh. On SoundCloud, obviously.
Okay,
Give her a listen. Thank you.
All right. I am Taigen Irigoyen with Paul Mansfield. This has been the Padrecast. You can read my book, Hangman, at tinyurl.com/451press. That's the numbers 451 followed by press, no spaces. New chapters come out weekly, unless they don't.
Thank you so much for having me, Taigen.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've been Taigen Irigoyen, and I
am out of here.
have fingernails.